And the big news this morning comes 2 days after former President Trump again took credit for ending Roe v. Wade and said states should decide their own abortion laws. Remember this.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state.
Like yesterday, Arizona giving the nation the latest stark example of the consequences of leaving the issue up to individual states. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled a 160-year-old near total abortion ban still on the books in the state is enforceable. The decision, which could shutter abortion clinics across Arizona, adds the state to the growing list of places where abortion health care is effectively banned. The ruling allows an 1864 law to stand, making abortion a felony punishable by 2 to 5 years in prison for anyone who performs one or helps a woman obtain one. The Civil War era law, which was enacted half a century before Arizona even was a state, does include an exemption to save the life of the mother. Arizona's Attorney General came out against the ban moments after the ruling.
Let me be completely clear. As long as I am Attorney General of the state of Arizona, no woman or doctor will be prosecuted under this draconian law. No woman or doctor will be prosecuted under this law as long as I am Attorney General. Not by me, nor by any county attorney serving in our state, not on my watch.
And she'll be our guest at 9 a.m. And so, Willie, let's do the math here. Monday morning, President Trump says, I am the one who overturned Roe v. Wade. I'm proud of that. And number two, it should be up to the states. And then Arizona says, OK, hold our beer.
Yeah, Arizona answering the call from former President Trump very quickly there. As you said, Mika, this is a code written by a judge named Howell in 1864. How old is this? That judge was nominated by Abraham Lincoln. It was codified into law in 1901. Wow. And now here we are in 2024, making this the law of the land, according to the Supreme Court there. So President Biden, as you can imagine, condemned the Arizona ruling just minutes after it came down. The president calling the decision, quote, a result of the extreme agenda of Republican elected officials who are committed to ripping away women's freedom. The president's statement also highlights the ban has no exception for rape or incest, none. On social media, Biden blamed Donald Trump for the ban, posting a news headline of the ruling, writing, Trump did this. Vice President Kamala Harris now will travel to Arizona on Friday. She was in Phoenix just over a month ago as part of her Fight for Reproductive Freedoms tour, as it's called. The White House says the vice president has held more than 80 events in 20 states since the Supreme Court overturned Roe just under 2 years ago. So, Joyce Vance, we'll talk about the politics of this in just a second, but let's talk about the legal side of this. How did we get from a code in 1864 to a Supreme Court uphold ruling in 2024?
So yesterday, the Arizona Supreme Court confirmed what we know about these zombie laws. These are pre-Roe laws that banned abortion. In 1973, when the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade, they were no longer good law. But instead of removing them from the books in many conservative states, they were permitted to stay, looking forward to a day where Roe versus Wade would be overturned. And that's precisely what's happened. We've seen a series of these laws. You know, I think this is the oldest one we've looked at. come back into effect. And Willie, here's the problem with these laws. Even when you have an attorney general who says she won't enforce the law, and she'll try to keep all of the county attorneys in Arizona from enforcing it too, there's risk, there's fear, there's uncertainty. Doctors in Arizona, clinics, people who help women access reproductive health care, they don't know whether that attorney general will remain in place. And Arizona has a long statute of limitations. Might someone come on board in 2 or 3 years who will prosecute them for a felony crime and send them to prison for up to 5 years? This is essentially the end of access to abortion in Arizona.
Okay, so Joyce, a couple of questions. And by the way, Kamala Harris heading to Arizona is definitely, symbolic support for abortion health care. She has shown up at abortion clinics. And of course, the Biden administration doing everything they can to support women and their right to these choices and to this health care. But legally, this law, now that this has happened, does have some challenges. It doesn't immediately go into effect. Can you explain the different steps that are being taken to try and push back, at least?
Right. So there's a grace period of about 2 weeks before it can go into effect. And that's typical in this sort of a situation. The problem is, Mika, and there will certainly be efforts to challenge the law. The Arizona Supreme Court referred to what they were doing as enforcing the mutable will of the voters, meaning that the will of voters can change over time. We know that there's strong support in Arizona for abortion rights. There's a strong libertarian streak in the state. So Barry Goldwater, former presidential candidate, when George W. Bush adopted an anti-abortion platform in the Republican Party's plan when he was running for election, Barry Goldwater, Arizona's favorite son, said, it's wrong for us to be anti-abortion. Abortion has been around for a long time. It'll always be here. This is a death knell for the Republican Party. And so even among Arizona Republicans, there is some support, or at least not this sort of a wish for a total ban on abortion. But again, it will be the atmosphere of fear that will be created that will prevent challenges and prevailing views from protecting abortion, at least until Arizona's legislature, if it in fact is willing to go there, adopts new laws that supplant this one.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.